morning, Matthew. How are you?
Good morning, Frank. How about you?
I'm all right. Do you prefer Matt or Matthew?
Matthew's fine for today.
Yeah, today, but tomorrow might be different.
Yeah, depending on the mood,
I do know.
Hey, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll get right down to it. How you been doing during this pandemic?
Personally, okay, everything's fine here. My wife and I still like each other.
I tell people I ask people who are in relationships that I think this is like the ultimate test of like one true relationship of like how long can you guys handle each other being at home all this time. So I'm gonna assume you guys been doing pretty well.
Yeah, we lots and lots of years of marriage too.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you teach theater, and you teach for college students, correct? At Elmhurst College.
Yeah, I teach theater classes at Elmhurst College.
Great. And
As far
how?
as how I'm faring,
Yeah, I was gonna say, how have you been adjusting to it?
there's a little bit of surprises. One, I'm a senior, just so you know. So, technology is not my best friend, but I've managed to adapt to it.
Hmm.
And I will tell you this: I'm surprised at how well my improv classes have adapted,
Mm.
which is surprising as hell. Because to me, the lack of personal interaction, which is what theater is to me, is being able to be involved, person to person, the exchange of energy, the getting someone else to respond and react within a moment. That's what it's about. And especially at improv, you can go with all the cliches, and the cliches are correct. Yes, and so on and so forth. You have to have something to yes and to, and it's more than just a voice or the eyes. And they're responding well, and they're having a good time. I think it's therapeutic for them.
Oh, yeah. And improv of all the classes that I was thinking about, that was on the back of my head of, of how do you do it online? 'Cause I was thinking like scene study and movement work, and I completely forgot about improv, and I'm glad that that's working. Um, so you've been teaching for a long time, and been doing theater for a long time. The current state of theater, how would you describe it as?
To me, I see a lot of things happening online. And please understand, my background comes from I was trained at the Goodman School,
Hmm.
uh, Illinois State University, and with at the risk of bringing people into the room, so to speak, with people that I've worked with, Laurie Metcalf, John Malkovich, Gary Cole. These are all people who are not only roommates after college, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
But again, I'm from an older school,
Hmm.
and what I had described when we first began this conversation about what I expect to happen in theater, that response reaction, that immediacy, the energy that's felt within a room, the comprehension of what it's like to just move a hand and a finger to open a palm, to touch someone's arm. Uh, Other than in monologue, it's hard to deal with how that would work. Even the most expressive people vocally, you know, please understand, I was excessively well paid stand-up comedian as well when I worked with Players Workshop at the Second City. But God, there's an energy that takes place between an audience and the performers, which is a part of theater that is often missed. And you miss that.
Hmm.
It's hard to say. We can have excellent vocalizations, we can have precise articulation, but unless there's well, do you have an acting background?
Yes, I'm studying acting right now.
Where at?
Columbia College?
Oh, okay. That's you know David Woolley?
Yes.
David Woolley and I were fight partners at the Goodman.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And a guy named Link was one of the first people when they started their big theater program. He's also from Illinois State University back in the day, before the Goodman. Um, like I said, sorry, drop names, put them in the room, but
No, it's okay. They
it's part of
appreciate
the
it.
history to comprehend how old I am. I think the teaching of acting, other than monologue coaching,
Hmm.
is not well served. because it's different than film acting. And even so, most people are not set up to have multiple camera angles or to have a true close-up that has dimension to it on their computers. And so we lose what exactly is being expressed. I know a lot of people who are excessively expressive can't act their way out of a paper bag. And it's so, you could tell when we go see a production, when we're watching someone on stage, boy, they said that nicely. Here's an example. Are you in the midst of studying Shakespeare? Have you studied Shakespeare? Do you feel fluent in Shakespeare? Do you know scansion and all that?
I would say my studying Shakespeare is lacking with as opposed to other stuff.
Okay.
But I have an idea of it.
Yeah. And what the reason I'm bringing that up is there was a long time where people did Shakespeare by being articulate and paying very close attention to scansion. And it didn't necessarily express the fact that this guy, this Bill Shakespeare dude, was a dude who wrote the sitcom or the hour drama of the day. He had to fill his house every single day. And therefore, he had to be able to relate to the commoner. That's where they had the gallery on the floor, the ground. The higher up you were on the wall, the dove or the swan or so on and so forth, the more prominent in society you were because you got to distance yourself from those people on the floor, but he had to appeal to all of them. I have a terrible time with people who think literarily they understand Shakespeare. Shakespeare was a guy. Shakespeare wrote guttural things, he wrote hysterical things, but the only way that works is if you not forget the scansion, but make the scansion come from a person's mouth. Make it a human being saying these things with the same type of comprehension of background and interplay and relationship that one does with modern theater, one needs to do with Shakespeare. But you can hear old recordings of people who do Shakespeare, and it is articulate as hell, and there's a certain degree of comprehension in what's happening and the ability to relay what's being said to an audience. That's all fine and dandy, but it's not the full focus and compass of what theater is. So that's what I'm saying is lacking when we're doing online work. We can hear the words, but we can't feel, we can't see. We can see people trying to, and I'm coaching because I have private lessons in acting and playwriting and things like that as well. I could coach it so the words make sense. I could coach it so that when you explain the beats and the units within a given segment even of a monologue, it's hard to encompass the whole being teaching online. And I think it is a slight for those who wish to go into it professionally. And I'm going, and I have non-major classes as well. And the non-major acting classes, it was real easy to change the focus, and even though I didn't change the name, and I'm going to suggest that they do this, call it the theory of acting, methods of acting, how to be an actor. Because you can't really say it's acting. It's the comprehension of it. So many people don't understand how much work goes into building a character.
Yeah.
How much you have to know about what it is you're doing. The relationships become so important, and you add the background to that. My reaction is much different than my neighbor's reaction given the same situation with his wife. I've gone through a lot of wives. I've shot them, but sorry, it just happens.
It's okay. I hope you didn't just confess something on the air.
Oh, no. I got photos. I've sent them to the police.
Okay.
Like I said, it's a different era.
Yeah.
A varied background. That being said, while I'm doing all this stuff in theater, I'm also playing bass in a blues band.
Wow.
Starting to get a picture. I'm not a biker either. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
But I was an all-state football player and wrestler.
How about that?
I know. I try to break all those categories.
Were you a mechanic as well?
No, I never liked to get my hands that greasy.
Oh, okay.
But I had to fix my own cars because I bought my own car when I was 16.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so that's another thing that I find discouraging here is the hands-on immediacy of what happens in a room.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a pause, there's not a break, and there's no glitches.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference because think of it. There's books called immediate theater. The immediacy of what we do, the moment, that's a big one these days. I can't even think of the guy's name who wrote the book about living in the moment, the moments. And it's one of the most used textbooks there is. I won't use it because I'm a little more eclectic than that.
Yeah.
That's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And that immediacy, that connection is what it's all about. You know, if you go way back, it's a form of communication as far back as theater goes, where you have a playwright to a director, interpreted to its designers. And you can see how this line of communication goes. And its actors in the same place. And all of that moves forward into one cogent communication that is designed to get audience reaction, and audience reaction is part of that same formula that goes across the board. It's mathematical, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great deal of comfort in knowing that if you follow this, you're going to do it. For example, if I sign a contract, I guarantee at the very worst you're going to get a very good show.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have directed, because I admit I'm a prostitute. If someone offers me a certain amount of money, I say, yes, I could direct that show, no problem at all. And then it's my task to, even if I know better, I have to consider the playwright a genius. Mm-hmm. To eke out everything that playwright has put into that play and then build onto it more and more and more. Then it's up to the actors. Mm-hmm. And I'm not one of those iron-handed. I come in and I try not to waste people's time. I have a concept, I talk about the concept, then I expect actors to educate me come the second and third week about what I don't know. Mm-hmm. And suddenly, that word ensemble, best word in the world.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the things that's missing online teaching. Mm-hmm. And I miss that. I miss it a lot.
Yeah. And I agree, because so much of theater is an ensemble and just the camaraderie of being in a room with other actors, sharing a love of it, and then watching these scenes or monologues. It helps fill a room with different, for me, for my sake, it helps me get different ideas of what to do, what not to do, what could work, what could not work. And and it's so hard. I'm not in any acting classes right now, but I'm in a voice class right now, and I did a monologue last week. My teacher wanted a speech from a movie, and I did the great dictator speech from Chaplin, and you know, has it been overdone? Probably, but I feel I was just trying different takes, different ideas, and none of them were working just because I haven't had the full experience of having other ideas. I could be missing something when doing it, and I wouldn't know until I get my grade, which is the unfortunate part of this whole process. I'm not going to learn until after I get my grade of what to do and not to do.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for your answer. And I kind of want to circle back to when this whole pandemic started. Is it hard to address to students saying, we're not going to be back for a while?
There's a couple of ways to approach that. Mm-hmm. As a major, I feel like they're not incorrect because they're not getting what they're paying for. Mm-hmm. The fact is, you're called a professor because the state, the school, everyone else has deemed you experienced enough and knowledgeable enough to profess ideas amongst the philosophy of whatever subject matter it is you're conveying and working to achieve knowledge in the students. Online, you sacrifice way too much for the major, not for a minor even, but more importantly, not for someone who's not getting a degree and just taking it as regular course to explore it. That's different. You could get away with a lot, but people who are looking to make it a career absolutely need that kind of guidance. And that being said, the people who I teach who are in the majors classes, they work their asses off to try to make it work because they know they want to finish the semester one way or the other. Mm-hmm. But if they say they're not coming back, my answer is, I understand. Will I get in trouble for that? I don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, I shouldn't have said that, but it happens. Mm-hmm. You know, I at the American College Theater Festival, myself and my friend Rick Arnold, who's a designer, we've done like 70, 80 shows together. And we opened up our own theater at one point for 4 years. Hmm. We talk about sharing your passion. That's our topic. Mm-hmm. Because to me, that's the ensemble you had spoken of. But it's that sharing, that coming up with the creation together, the trusting. That's why I say I'm coming across like, oh, gosh darn, he's academic. Yeah, I am that. But I'm also, like I said, I did stand-up comedy. I did improvisation. I'm a musician. So it kind of spans a lot of different things. I just happen to really get into this idea of ensemble and building something together. Mm-hmm. God, it's important. And it's the excitement of it to me. I am not, I've been in multiple Jeff Award winning and nominated shows. Mm-hmm. That being said, I am not the person who goes, cheer for me. Mm-hmm. That's not what drives me to do it. What drives me to do it is looking in the eyes of the person I'm performing with and leaving to be that. Mm-hmm. To be that person in that moment with that other person and creating that character. You know, this is part of every lecture I've ever given was acting and theater, it's all craft. Some of us are born with a great deal of talent, which makes that craft come a little bit easier, but then it becomes the discipline of comprehending the craft. And sometimes when our craft and our talent come together, we create art. Mm-hmm. How cool is that?
Very.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people forget. You know, I love watching people, because I've been involved now in the most recent last 3 years. I've gotten back to doing community theater. I did that when I first finished my MFA back in the day, and did that and started stepping up after that. But I'm kind of back now, as I'm in my dotage, to doing some community shows. And I appreciate the different layers of the individuals who are auditioning and coming to it. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you that most of them are not of the discipline of the craft. They're there to have a good time, and that's fine. That's why it's called community theater. Mm-hmm. But they also aren't used to the regimen that I approach a show with, because someone's going to pay and come in that door. And my attitude is, why would you give them anything less than your best for everybody? It's that sharing your passion, but being open to do that. And we talked about, back in the day, it was Laurence Olivier, because it was so appropriate for him to play Othello. He was on stage doing the production, and there was this young actor, Richard Burton was his name. And Richard Burton just decided, I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to talk to him. And they're in the wings, and he goes, what made you do that speech that way tonight? You've never done it that way before. And Laurence Olivier's answer was, you got to do something to keep the little bastards awake. Different time, different style. Mm-hmm. And, but it was still an ensemble. He was able to sell it. He was one of those guys who was ultra talented and knew his craft backwards and forwards. At the same token, a movie called Marathon Man, I don't know if you're aware of what that is.
Oh, yeah, I know that movie.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman and, again, Sir Laurence Olivier were in that. And Dustin Hoffman came into the dressing room after Laurence Olivier was sitting there getting into makeup. It was like 5 a.m. in the morning. And Dustin Hoffman comes in and goes, he goes, tell me, sir, why are you so out of breath? And Hoffman goes, well, I'm getting into character. I mean, it's the Marathon Man, so I run every morning to get myself into it. There was a pause. Then he looks over and says, why don't you just act? And so many people are stuck on Stanislavski. They go, you have to do this. You have to the method. You must do this. You have to, and you pour over the role. And there's a certain amount of that that's true. But when the people from the group theater went over and visited Stanislavski, and they told him, we're doing this, we're doing that, and we're following what you said, and Stanislavski looked at them square in the eye and said, that's a good start. Because it's not a religious thing, just like Peter Brooks said. It's not the holy theater. It's an organic, involved thing, and often as not, people have a tendency to forget the theatricality of it. They call it meta theater. Thank you, Brecht. But the fact that this is still going, this goes on, and there's people who over intellectualize what's going on, as opposed to just getting it down to the basics. If you've worked with your design staff and you've shared your passion with them, and you guys have come to a totally cogent, comprehensive viewpoint of how to express what this piece is about, you trust that it's going to do that. And again, that's the kind of thing that on very rare occasions can you do that unless you have totally dedicated individuals. Like production meetings. I've had production meetings from long distance, and it's just not the same as speaking with people in person. Because words, especially from someone with my background, words have a tendency to get in the way, because unless you see, I've been able to get away with saying things that anyone else would be completely crucified for because of my demeanor and my presence and the energy I project. You feel the smile that's going on. You feel the elbow, going in your arm going, ha, ha, ha. And it's part of the communication. And to me, to comprehend who's making a statement, no matter what part of the production staff or what part of the ensemble they are, to comprehend where they're coming from doesn't change the talent they bring or the amount of craft and knowledge they bring. And when I see people getting overly sensitive about who that person is and their use of language, and you said that, here, let me tell you, this may be a little graphic for you, but when people first come into my class, what I say is, if you're very sensitive and you have a tendency to feel a lot of trigger words, please understand that the arts, that's the idea, is to get triggered. It's the idea to respond and react to those situations. So please, if that's going to be your motive, get the fuck out of my class now. And I mean that, since I do say that. Because you can't do the arts. Not to be, and I'm not talking about being insensitive to individuals.
Yeah. I'm
talking about everyone being comprehending each other's, where they're from, what they're doing, what they're saying, what they mean. I've come to I never touch a student until I'm saying, I'm going to touch you now. And they say, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's a necessity. I don't mind that. That's just being understanding of another individual. But you can't edit what's natural, what comes natural. And that's what has to happen in the arts. Like I look at so many shows and the words, what's referred to, the reason it's referred to in those ways, especially some pieces written in the last 10, 15 years, those pieces purposefully say insensitive things, use language that is designed to trigger an audience of mixed folk. You don't hide that. I don't trim a Monet to fit over my fireplace. And that's what people are doing. They're editing things sometimes. They go, why are you doing that? So those are some of the things that in general happen. Without being in person, how do you express that?
Yeah.
How do you express that? Human beings are really cool.
Yeah.
What a neat animal.
Yeah, for sure. Last question before we wrap it up. So I think a lot of us are going through everyone is going through this difficult time, and with the future in a very big uncertain area, Governor Pritzker announced that be aware, e-learning might continue in the fall, which who knows how people are going to react to that. What advice would you have for students, any students in general, probably going through struggling right now through e-learning and trying to comprehend whatever they're learning?
one, make the rational job. Another thing I say to my students, this might clarify a lot of where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
I tell students all the time, you are adults going to school on your own behalf to secure your own future.
Mm-hmm.
So what you get out of anything you do is what you put into it. We have to be honest with ourselves as students, and I'll be a student till the day I die. Am I capable of learning what I need to learn from this medium? Is that possible? Just like I have to go, can I teach this medium? Because I will not teach a class that I feel will not be served, because that doesn't serve anybody. That's just like, yeah, we'll take your money. That's BS.
Mm-hmm.
But be honest with yourself as a student. Take the courses that you just need to take for your general education at this particular point.
Mm-hmm.
Do those things. Get your electives done at this point, because you know it's not going to affect your major, especially in the performing arts where we're at, because nobody's going to look at, oh, you just got a C+. What they're going to look at is how well you do, and let me see the paper, let me see your designs, that's what we're going to look at. So get by with those courses that you can just pass, and it's not going to stop you from moving ahead. Be honest about it. Because if you're honest, you're going to want the best education you can get, no matter where you are, no matter what your income is, no matter what your level of talent is. In order to pursue one's future, you've got to be honest with yourself. Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, the worst time to pursue all that stuff is when you're in college, because we like to party.
Yeah. Yo, yeah. You're not wrong.
And we should. Damn it, that's what it's about. That's part of growing up, because it's one of the few times when you get to let it go and do that kind of thing while you're pursuing, while you're moving forward. School's great.
Yeah.
Marvelous for that.
And we get, and you know, even after school, we still get to learn, which is why I'm glad you still call yourself a student after many years of learning and performing and now teaching. I'm glad that professors still see themselves as students, which is awesome.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. Well, Frank, I can't imagine another professor I want to talk to you right now during a pandemic. So thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate you taking some time to talk. This was a nice little lesson about theater in general, which is nice to have once in a while.
I hope you got the information you were looking to, and it does what you want it to.
Oh, for sure. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening to this episode of You Have a Minute, a daily isolated podcast. My thanks to Frank Del Giudice. Look at that, I pronounced his name wrong the last 2 times. This is why we do a fact check. I had to ask him after we stopped recording, and yeah, it turns out I was wrong. So my apologies, Frank, but thank you for coming on. It's always nice to have a nice little life lesson about theater, and Frank seemed like a really intelligent and very knowledgeable thespian. This is the first time I've talked to him. We texted each other before for him coming on, but this was the first time I got to talk to him. And, you know, shout out to Shannon Lee Day. She was actually the one who got in contact with him and asking him if he would be interested in appearing on the program. And he graciously said yes, which is awesome. So thank you, Shannon. See you tomorrow. Wash your hands, wear a mask, wear gloves if needed. Let's flatten this curve, baby. I'll see you later.